Hey harmonizers, welcome to this video with Mustang Aoife, Mustang 8640, that is progressing to riding training. So now that the Pennsylvania Mustang show is over and she did super awesome there and the Liberty went great, after coming home, it's saddle time, get some riding miles in, get some help with Katie once I do all of the saddle and groundwork pieces. Because these pieces that I'm going to show you are quite challenging. They can be situations where you really overwhelm horses, so it's so important to do them slowly, carefully, and Aoife has a really good relationship with me, so I want to make sure that it's really non-eventful. So what you're watching right now is Aoife wearing a saddle for the very first time. And because it's her first time ever wearing a saddle, I've got it as a treeless Western saddle, so it's fully flexible, moves with her, because the last thing I want is for a saddle to be on her that's pinching or not quite comfortable, or maybe I didn't notice there's a twist or something. So you do have to be super careful with treed saddles, because a treed saddle that is not the right size for your horse can cause a lot of problems, especially as they learn to move with the saddle, whereas a treeless saddle completely moves with them. It's kind of like a bareback pad with stirrups, but the better treeless saddles have shape and structure and weight distribution panels, and they're really quite good. But it can be something that's a little bit tricky for the horses if it's like a bad one. So you want to make sure that that's comfortable for them. And the main thing here is she's getting used to the flapping of the stirrups at her side. It's a little bit more weight than when she had just like a surcingle on or something like that. And it's also something that sits a little bit taller, maybe feels a little bit different. It's got a few extra straps on there because I went for the Western one. And what I decided to do is we're just working at Liberty. So her following me over the jump, trotting all of those little pieces is her just kind of offering to do those things. And then she has the freedom to move around. If she needed to go off on a bronking spree, then she totally could have. So after we established that she was feeling okay with the saddle, I'm working on a little bit of the lunging. So those of you guys that have followed me up till this point with Aoife, I've done like basically no lunging, because chasing a horse in a circle is not something that I really do with my Mustangs. I work more on having them with me and doing things together, and transitioning to lunging to me, I think, is more of an advanced skill. It's not a foundational skill, because making the horse move and run can sometimes just kind of spiral into them learning to run from you, run, like move. And I prefer the horses to slow down, think, like look at me, watch my communication, all those little pieces. So now we're working on the lunging piece, and this is an important piece for progressing to riding, because one, we're teaching her those cues of walk, trot, and canter, and two, when I'm using the big long driving whip that I have there with me, if I touch her with it, when I reach out and I touch and I just kind of tap on her little booty there, it's not with the intention to hurt her or scare her to go forward, but to teach her that, hey, I'm going to be getting on your back, or not me, Katie, because I'm currently pregnant right now with my sister-in-law's baby, that she had cancer, and so I'm carrying the baby for her, because nobody else was able to do it for her. So that's what's going on. So it's not going to be me getting on Aoife. It's going to be Katie. But to prepare Aoife for that, it's like, hey, there's going to be legs hanging at your side. There's going to be legs going bump, 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 or tap, tap, tap to ask you to go forward. And so using this driving whip, I'm able to do the tap, tap, tap. I'm able to reach out at a distance and do that. But for me, I'm careful not to do these things too early on in my relationship with the Mustangs, because I feel like it can really prevent them from getting out of that fear mentality of like, go, 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 run, run, run. So after we progress with the lunging, now we're on to Minnie Mouse training. So you'll see she's back at Liberty again. There's no rope attached, so that way if she's overwhelmed and she needs to move and boogie, she can certainly go off and do that. And then there's less risk for something happening because I'm not attached to her. The reason for putting a giant Minnie Mouse on Aoife is so that way she gets used to something very visual being up there. Minnie Mouse is actually pretty big and weighs a decent amount, enough that like Aoife's actually carrying something. So it's for her to get used to feeling what that is. Again, it's got kind of floppy arms and legs and stuff, and it's leaning, and it's gonna like touch her butt and stuff there. So she's getting used to what would it be like to have a person on my back. Now I'm so impressed with Aoife because she's just following me around at Liberty, and she's walk trotting around, and she's tolerating all of this extremely well. And this is her first time ever having Minnie Mouse on her back. And for me, I always want the first ride to go extremely successful. I don't want the horse to take off or anything like that. And so here's a moment where you see Aoife gets a little bit upset, and she actually does go for a canter. But what I love is that she doesn't actually buck or try to get Minnie Mouse off. She just runs to see if she can get away from Minnie Mouse. And then she's kind of looking at it and thinking about it. And she's like, oh, it's still there. And so these are some important little things for the Mustangs to learn, or horses in general to learn when they're ready, which is that if there's a person on your back, we want that person to stay on your back, but they're not going to hurt you. This Minnie Mouse is a very big, soft plushie. It's not going to spur you, whip you, anything like that. There's nothing, horrible going to happen to you. And you can learn that and figure that little piece out, that it's going to be okay. And so I'm giving her time to process now. And after giving her some time to just think about this Minnie Mouse on her back, she ends up kind of linking up with me at Liberty again and walking around really nicely, switching of sides. You can see, even though we're still at Liberty, I brought out the driving whip so that way we could cue some trot and get things going really nicely. And Aoife's doing amazing with all of this. She's like, taking some time to think about things sometimes. She had one moment of getting a little bit overwhelmed, but didn't go into a full panic, bronc, takeoff scenario. And all of this is really setting up that first ride to go really, really well. And of course, Minnie Mouse is a stranger to Aoife, and so will Katie. Katie's going to be doing some groundwork with her. I'm doing all of the key first steps of the things, just because in these moments, if you accidentally push too much in a moment, you could cause them to really explode and have a bad situation. And yet, if you're not consistent about what you're asking them to do, these are also the moments when horses can learn to have some not so great habits. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of little pieces going on. So because of that, I'm doing all of the major first with Aoife to help make sure they go really, really well. And you can see she's getting some positive reinforcement there, rewarding her for trying. And it's a real fine balance too, because I want her to trot long enough that there's a little bit of relaxation there. I don't want it to just be 3-step stop, 3-step stop, because then that can create a little bit of tension of not really relaxing into the trot. And yet I don't want to ask for too much that she holds it and then eventually gets overwhelmed. And part of that is reading the horse's body language and just kind of seeing, okay, like she's doing things for me. And you can see like right now she's doing things for me, but it's a little bit choppy. There's a little bit of lack of rhythm in her stride. And that kind of lets me know that this is not super relaxed Aoife. Even how she tucks her butt sometimes. They can do that when they're a little bit nervous, especially because Minnie Mouse is kind of hanging back by her bum. So that's going to cause her to do that a little bit. And then I'm also using the driving whip to help cue. So there's a lot going on. Overall, Aoife did absolutely amazing for her first time with all of this stuff. Let me know your favorite part. Remember to subscribe and check out harmonyhorsemanship.com for even more learning.